a man shot in the head.
How do you think the district attorney has handled your case?
He didn't take it serious.
A woman brutally beaten.
I was disregarded.
Violent criminals let off with questionable punishment.
No, I've never seen anything like this.
The victims are now demanding the district attorney be removed.
We can't keep doing this. We have to get this changed.
The complaints against this DA are so numerous, the state attorney general has launched an investigation.
Denver 7 investigative reporter Jennifer Kovaleski tracked down the DA, whose definition of justice is also infuriating a mayor, a police chief, and countless other city leaders.
It is unheard of.
He's facing an unprecedented state investigation.
That he's making a mockery of the judicial system.
And risking the votes that got him elected.
Our sincere hope is that he's recalled.
It's a huge controversy in South Central Colorado.
This has gotten extremely serious. It's putting the community at risk when we're not holding people accountable.
City leaders have had enough with San Luis Valley District Attorney Alonzo Payne.
We're no longer going to tolerate mediocrity in the DA's office.
But to understand why Alamosa city leaders are involved with recalling a sitting district attorney,
What do I think about him?
you have to hear the stories of victims.
I don't think I should say that.
Do you believe the person who shot you has been held accountable?
No, ma'am, not at all.
Questions center on how the DA handled the prosecution of Danny Pruitt's case.
Bullet holes right here.
A total stranger shot him in the back of the head at a Black Lives Matter protest. This surveillance video from a downtown store captured the moment that left Pruitt on life support.
There was no reason for it, you know. When the bullet hit my head, it was the loudest ringing you'll ever hear.
28-year-old James Marshall was charged with attempted murder and assault. But in the 11th hour, the DA reached a plea deal.
It was to my surprise that they offered him that plea bargain 3 days before the trial.
Here's where it gets interesting. The DA allowed the gunman to plead the charge down to tampering with a dead body.
For a little while, I thought the district attorney was trying to call me a dead person, you know.
And the questionable plea deals continued.
I was completely disrespected.
Lonnie Welch is a survivor of domestic violence.
I was told I would never be believed. Nobody would take it seriously. And DA Payne proved that.
Welch's ex-fiance was arrested for third-degree assault and stalking.
This is my offender's history.
But she says he, too, was convicted on a drastically reduced charge of stealing a phone.
The second plea, I was notified the Friday before the court. No, I did not agree. I filed a complaint with the Victims' Rights Board.
She's now one of at least 8 victims who filed complaints against Payne. A state investigation found his office likely violated victims' rights.
It has been forwarded to the Attorney General.
And for the first time ever, the Attorney General is now investigating a district attorney for violations of the Victims' Rights Act.
He's not doing his job.
Back in Alamosa,
It feels very strange. It's not something I think any of us ever thought we would be involved in.
Alamosa City Manager Heather Brooks says council passed an ordinance allowing the city to use taxpayer money to try and recall the DA.
This is unprecedented.
The city has taken the unusual step of adding a tab to its official website titled DA Concerns.
We don't need to be over the top on crime, but we need to have consequences. And right now, there's nearly zero consequences.
He's making these sweetheart plea deals.
Alamosa Mayor Ty Coleman says it's time for the district attorney to go.
He needs to be recalled, and someone else needs to be in that role that's going to do their job.
Alamosa Police Chief Ken Anderson is also calling on the DA to step down.
Let somebody take over that can do the job.
Anderson says officers have conducted 40 narcotic operations in the last 9 months, none of which resulted in a single trial. He says other questionable plea bargains involve murder charges.
What would you want to say to the district attorney?
Why are we not holding offenders accountable for their actions? We need to get Mr. Payne out of office as soon as possible, or he needs to resign and realize that he is not capable of doing this job.
Is anyone able to get a hold of the district attorney?
Well, from what I understand, there have been a lot of people who've tried, but unfortunately, they haven't had much luck.
After our calls went unanswered, we were able to track down the DA. Outside his Alamosa office.
Mr. Payne, we've been trying to get in touch with you. Jennifer Kovaleski with Denver 7.
Jennifer, how are you?
And he agreed to go in front of our cameras the next day.
Sorry, yesterday I was just...
The DA fired back against Alamosa city leaders and was unapologetic for offering plea deals.
They may disagree with my approach to prosecution, and I understand their perspective, but I do not agree with their approach to it either. And they are not the district attorney, I am.
Payne says he's living up to campaign promises to change the narrative and push progressive criminal justice reform.
They need rehabilitation, and DOC It's not providing it. County jails can't afford to provide it.
Why are you pleading down so many crimes, including serious ones?
I think that is a function that happens in every prosecutorial office. We also have to recognize that we have limited resources.
Help me understand why limited resources means you need to plead down murder charges.
Because we don't have the staffing capacity, and from my perspective, our rate of plea bargaining is no different than anyone else.
But it's worth noting, previous DAs had the same funding challenges and avoided this kind of controversy. Payne promised to provide the data proving his claims about plea bargains, but never did.
The city of Alamosa is funding a recall effort against you.
I believe what the city of Alamosa is doing is unconstitutional. They are using taxpayer dollars for political purposes.
Payne did take some accountability for violating victims' rights.
So the Attorney General is right. We've been very busy, and there have been some things that we have missed with victims' rights.
From Payne's perspective, he's trying to change the criminal justice system.
I'm doing it differently, and I intend to do it differently. City of Alamosa does not run the San Luis Valley.
And the DA says he's not going anywhere.
Do you have any plans to resign as they're asking you to do?
No, hell no.
From victims and city leaders' perspective, his questionable plea deals are putting their community at risk, and they'll do whatever it takes to force him out of office.
He's doing a disservice to the community he swore that he was going to help protect.
And this is just the beginning of the allegations against Payne. A judge recently cited him with contempt of court, but the DA doubled down on that too, saying he's convinced he's done nothing wrong. I'm Denver 7 investigative reporter Jennifer Kovaleski.
A major development in a Denver 7 investigation. The San Luis Valley's top prosecutor likely will face a recall election.
The Secretary of State has verified enough signatures to launch a recall against District Attorney Alonzo Payne, and that effort is being funded by the city of Alamosa. Our investigative team has spent months digging into the DA's questionable plea deals and violations of victims' rights.
Investigative reporter Jennifer Kovaleski continues her reporting tonight with another family raising serious concerns.
This is Mom, Barbara Vigil.
They called her the grandma of Saguache.
She helped everybody. She was just a kind, loving woman.
And she especially loved dancing with her family.
They would do all the powwows over in the valley.
911, this is Christy. Where's your emergency? Christy, there has been a really bad car accident.
It was 3 days before Thanksgiving in 2019. 180 miles southwest of Denver.
We need multiple ambulances. There's a fatality.
This is the day when Tammy Vigil's world came crashing down.
When we got the news, it didn't hit. I was just trying to decipher because my sister was crying. And then I told my husband, and he just fell to the ground, and he's like, no, that can't, that can't be.
Vigil's 76-year-old mother-in-law, Barbara, was heading home from work when this black pickup T-boned her, going more than 100 miles per hour.
Our mother was killed on impact.
The driver, 28-year-old Jason Huntress, was facing a long list of charges.
Vehicular homicide, vehicular assault, reckless driving, speeding, possession of marijuana and marijuana concentrate.
Troopers found close to a pound of weed, marijuana concentrate, and psychedelic mushrooms.
Nope, never spent a day in jail. Never. Not even when the accident happened did he go to jail.
12th Judicial District Attorney Alonzo Payne let the driver walk and agreed to a plea deal against the family's wishes.
They made us feel like our mom's life didn't matter.
In exchange for pleading guilty to vehicular homicide and careless driving, Huntress received a 4-year deferred sentence, meaning if he abides by the conditions of his probation, he will spend no time in jail and the charges will be dropped from his record.
He just wasn't interested in prosecuting it. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Denver 7 Investigates has spent months reporting on the DA's questionable plea deals and how the DA's definition of justice has led Alamosa city leaders to take the rare step of using taxpayer money to fund a recall against him.
This is the last thing we wanted to be spending our time on. We need, though, a district attorney who's going to file cases and tell the truth and not abuse the victims.
Victims' rights are also at the center of this story. Colorado's Attorney General has launched an unprecedented investigation into the San Luis Valley's top prosecutor. The AG is looking into allegations the DA's office violated victims' rights and didn't follow up with crime victims about plea deals as required by law.
We actually weren't notified until after they had offered him the plea agreement.
Not only did her mother-in-law's killer walk away without jail time, Tammy says the DA and his staff yelled at their family and disrespected them.
We were mistreated by the district attorney's office.
The Vigils are one of at least a dozen crime victims who have filed complaints against the DA.
It was to my surprise that they offered him that plea bargain 3 days before the trial.
The second plea, I was notified the Friday before the court. No, I did not agree.
It denies justice. It denies safety to people.
The Rocky Mountain Victim Law Center also filed its own complaint with the AG.
Because we saw such an increase in number of cases from that jurisdiction, we took the additional step of filing a pattern and practice complaint.
Kazi Houston is the law center's legal director. The complaint alleges the DA has repeatedly extended offers to defendants that are inappropriate under the circumstances and shown an extreme reluctance to take cases to trial.
It's embarrassing for our state. It's a systemic problem.
5,924 signatures.
And last month, the city of Alamosa says it turned in more than enough signatures to recall the DA. The Secretary of State just verified those signatures last week, which means the DA will likely face a recall election. District Attorney Payne never got back to us about the recall effort moving forward. He also failed to answer our questions about why he accepted a plea in the Vigil case. But back in April, he did sit in front of our cameras. What do you say to victims who feel that their cases weren't taken seriously?
I have empathy for them, and we are making conscious efforts on a regular basis to make sure that we have victim contact, especially on the most serious cases.
While Payne took some responsibility for violating victims' rights, he was unapologetic for his take on criminal justice reform.
I ran on changing the criminal legal system. I ran on emptying the jails. I intend to do it, and I'm doing it.
What happens if you're recalled?
It's not going to happen.
How do you say that confidently?
Because I believe that I had the support of the voters when I was elected, and I continue to believe that I will have support of the people as we move forward.
We're not the only victims.
For the Vigil family,
we buried her in that.
It's been 2 years since they lost their mother.
It has been the heaviest load that our family's ever had to carry.
And they don't want her story to be forgotten.
We want justice for our mother.
We've also learned the state suspended the license of a deputy district attorney who was involved in the Vigils case. DA Payne tells us Alex Raines no longer works in his office. I'm Denver 7 investigative reporter Jennifer Kowaleski.
And Payne now finds himself in the middle of a 15-day protest period to challenge the recall. After that, it will be up to Governor Polis to set a date for the recall election. We begin tonight at 6 with breaking news out of southern Colorado. San Luis Valley District Attorney Alonzo Payne is resigning. Glad you're with us tonight at 6. I'm Shannon Ogden.
I'm Ann Trujillo. And this is a story Denver 7 investigator Jennifer Kowaleski has been following for months now. And she joins us live in the newsroom. And Jen, Attorney General Phil Weiser will take over the DA's office there for now.
That's right, Ann. I just got off the phone with the Alamosa city manager about an hour ago. She says this was the best decision DA Payne could have made, and it is saving taxpayers a lot of money. I also spoke with several victims who were relieved to know that Attorney General Phil Weiser is taking over their cases.
We've had a Victim Rights Act for around 30 years.
Victims' rights abused.
It's never come to this.
Criminals let off with questionable deals.
And we've got to make sure this doesn't happen again.
A district attorney resigns in controversy.
That office deserves a new chapter. And what had happened under the prior leadership, it was just awful.
Tonight, Denver 7 Investigates is uncovering new concerns as the state tries to fix a broken office.
This situation is unlike anyone we've seen.
Colorado's Attorney General says he's never seen the rights of victimized people so horribly trampled upon. And the person responsible, one of the state's top prosecutors.
Our investigative team has been telling you for months about the many complaints against San Luis Valley District Attorney Alonzo Payne. He resigned after our reporting.
And tonight, AG Phil Weiser is talking to investigative reporter Jennifer Kowaleski about more violations he's uncovered and the actions he's taking to restore justice in the valley.
Do you have any plans to resign as they're asking you to do?
No, hell no, no.
He was adamant when we first met him, and he doubled down the next day. City leaders are calling on you to resign.
I'm not going to do that. I'm elected.
But less than 3 months after our interview, with public pressure mounting.
He needs to resign and realize that he is not capable of doing this job.
A recall election funded by the city of Alamosa.
Our sincere hope is that he's recalled.
And Colorado's Attorney General finding his office ignored and mistreated crime victims.
In the entirety of the Victims' Rights Act in Colorado history, we've never gotten to this point before.
12th Judicial District Attorney Alonzo Payne responded. He changed his position and resigned, writing in his resignation letter, "It is apparent to me that the elite in the San Luis Valley and the judicial activists amongst us do not want to see criminal justice reform enacted." Your thoughts on District Attorney Payne's resignation letter?
I'm glad that District Attorney Payne stepped down. It was the best thing for the community. This community needs a new start.
Attorney General Phil Weiser didn't want to comment on the substance of the former DA's resignation letter. Instead, he says his office is now focused on repairing the damage.
One of the challenges is there was damage that was done that can't be undone. A plea deal that's been agreed to is locked in. What we can do is going forward, build better practices.
Denver 7 Investigates spent months exposing the DA's questionable plea deals and how his office failed to notify crime victims as required by law.
This situation is unlike anyone we've seen. Victims were not listened to. They were not treated respectfully. They were not told about the critical stages of the criminal justice process.
What do I think about him? I don't think I should say that.
I was disregarded.
They made us feel like our mom's life didn't matter.
The AG's office will now serve in an interim role to fix the Valley's criminal justice system. Since the DA's resignation, Weiser's team has already uncovered more problems, including a backlog of at least 500 cases.
That's going to take time. And unfortunately, the Valley is hurting right now, and we are asking people to be patient while that office gets rebuilt.
While Colorado's Attorney General works to rebuild the DA's office in Alamosa, it is now the governor's responsibility to appoint a new interim district attorney.
What happened is a cautionary tale. It is unprecedented. It's terrible that victims suffered the way they did.
What do you want victims in the San Luis Valley to know?
I want victims to know how sorry we are about what they went through. No victim should have their rights violated.
Weiser says his team is committed to crime victims and a new chapter for prosecution in the San Luis Valley.
This was an exceptional situation. It's never happened before. We can never let it happen again.
There are still questions on if the former district attorney could face punishment. The attorney general wouldn't comment, but any discipline would come from the state Supreme Court. Payne still has an active license to practice law in Colorado. I'm Denver 7 investigative reporter Jennifer Kovaleski.
And last week, Governor Polis announced a new panel that will review applications to appoint an interim DA for the 12th Judicial District. Interviews start next month. Now, in the meantime, the Attorney General Weiser will oversee that office. Now, this is a story Jennifer Kovaleski and the rest of the Denver 7 investigative team have worked on for months. And you can find complete reporting from them right now on thedenverchannel.com.
New at 5, the former district attorney in the San Luis Valley can no longer practice law. Alonzo Payne has been disbarred.
And it follows multiple Denver 7 investigations into the DA's questionable plea deals and violations of victims' rights. Denver 7 investigative reporter Jennifer Kovaleski has been all over the story. You got a copy of the order today, and he admits he wasn't ready for the job.
He admits he wasn't ready to be DA. Payne also agreed he wasn't competent to prosecute complicated felony cases, and he only went to trial 5 times during his entire tenure as DA.
Denver 7 Investigates spent months exposing serious allegations against the former San Luis Valley district attorney. Colorado's Attorney General found his office violated victims' rights earlier this year. Alonzo Payne resigned in July while a recall election moved forward against him. The recent Supreme Court documents outline even more violations. It details how Payne failed to communicate with judges, defense attorneys, and victims, dismissed cases at the last minute, and in the cases he did try, failed to get convictions. His disbarment from practicing law goes into effect next month. We called Payne for comment, but he has not returned our calls. I'm Denver 7 investigative reporter Jennifer Kovaleski.